days we're there, aren't we? You're thinking, I feel that fantastic, it's amazing. And other days you're trying to find it, aren't you? Thinking, come on, how can we still feel positive? How can we do it? And throughout the pandemic here at Radio Stoke, a huge thank you to the bloke who's joined us on the show every single week and replied to your emails as well. So many people have been in touch saying, that bloke, Rob, how do I get hold of him? It's Rob Edwards from LIFECYCLE Coaching in Sandbach. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Lou. Are you okay?
Yeah, good. I wondered actually with you, we've just been on about children in need and stuff and where a lot of the money's going, and it is for kids' mental health this year.
Yeah, it's fantastic what they did at the weekend, isn't it? And it's raised a lot of money for children's mental health services, and so they can all learn the benefits of, talking about these things and opening up about mental health and everything. It's amazing.
With the job that you do and offering advice and just, I guess, making us think differently as well, of how we can be a bit easier on ourselves. You're also a qualified mental health first aid instructor, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So lots of my time, aside from all the coaching stuff, is spent training mental health first aiders up and down the country. It's hugely rewarding and I love it.
I know I've had a million questions for you every week. This was, of all people, right, an interview that I heard a couple of weeks ago with Jack D, the comedian. Yeah. Right. So I know this is a random thing and I wanted your opinion on this. He was doing an interview. I think he was on this morning. It was when I was off sick. So I was watching that, and he was on it. And he actually said, could somebody please start talking about the difference between how we're meant to be as humans? We are sometimes happy, sometimes sad, sometimes upset, sometimes anxious. So basically he's saying we need to know the difference between a natural response to going, oh, I've got this big project coming up at work, or I'll never make the school run. You're meant to feel anxious. You're meant to feel something. He said not to blur it and confuse it with having a mental health condition or illness. Do you get what I'm saying? How do we know?
Completely. He's bang on. It's really interesting. It's a dead interesting question because these two things are very, very closely linked. Like we said, there's a huge focus on mental health these days, and we roll that term out an awful lot. But the terms mental health and mental illness, they mean very different things. And so the language and the terminologies that we use are really important here. So mental health is your general state of well-being. It's your general state of mind. It's something that we should look after. If we look after our mental health, we can maintain good mental health. But mental illness is something different. That's something that disrupts your mental state, and it starts to interrupt how you think and feel and communicate and behave. And so understanding the difference between mental health and mental illness is the foundation of all mental health education at the end of the day.
So it's not, I guess, a direct response to something that's happened in the day. Like, as humans, we all have to feel various things. That's part of, being. I think we're human, aren't we? I think we are. But that I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety disorder years ago. And the way I explain it is because my friend said to me, Caroline, she's a manager now. She's gone up to a higher scale job, and she went, oh, I know now. She went, oh, I'm starting to feel really anxious. And I said to her, no, I said, you're feeling anxious because the projects or whatever are getting bigger at work, and I think that's the difference. I said, whereas mine, people with my disorder, I call it like a big dread. You can at any point just have you're washed. It's almost like you're being filled up, Rob, with dread. Yeah. It's like liquid dread, but there hasn't been something that's triggered it. Does that make sense?
Completely, and there doesn't have to be a trigger. So it's like the question, when does mental health become mental illness? That's kind of the fringes that Jack D was talking about, and it's a really interesting one because there isn't an on-off switch here. We don't suddenly go from health to illness and back again. There are degrees of health. And there are often signs along the way that we might be making a shift from one to the other. We just need to be aware of those signs. So, for example, like you said, we might just wake up one day feeling a bit sad, or our mood might be lower, or we might be anxious about something and not be able to put our finger on it. But I'll suggest that we all have days and times like that where we feel down or stressed or anxious. That's normal. We're meant to feel those things. And when we feel them in an appropriate way, that's fine. But it's when those feelings are persistent and ongoing, and when they are present seemingly without reason, that we might need to be a little bit more aware.
What would your advice be like to somebody listening now? Because I remember I fought this off for years. Because I've got a neurological illness, they kept saying at the hospital, oh, do you want to have counselling? And I was like, no. And I was very in my 20s, like, no, why? I'm fine. And what would you say to somebody?
It's about be patient and be persistent. You know, we compared it to physical health before. You don't suddenly get physically healthy by going to the gym once. It's about persistence and patience and consistency. So even with a diagnosed mental illness, it's still possible to still have good mental health and live a full and wholesome life. You know, mental illness is often episodic. We have times of ill health and times of good health as well. And just like with physical health, it's about persistence. We don't suddenly get mentally fit from one session. It takes time and consistency and patience.
It's so true, isn't it? If you went the gym once, you're not going to look like a gym boy, are you, for the rest of your life if you just go once? So even when you feel well, you kind of have to keep on top of it. And how do we find more out, Rob, about you? Because I know you've got different podcasts and a website as well.
Yeah, the website's lifecyclecoaching.co.uk. There's podcasts out there called All About the Doubt. And just remember, with the right support and the right tools in place, anyone can live well and anyone can live healthily.